Hi, this is Jill. Welcome to the Life After podcast, where we talk about moving from surviving to thriving. This podcast is for anyone who wants to learn, grow, to get tips and tricks about how to inspire you to become the person you want to be, and get clarity about exactly what you want in life. This is also the place to be if you want to be lifted up and encouraged to go out and do great work in the world. What has happened to you in your past does not have to define who you are today or who you become in the future. And in fact, what has happened to you in the past should, can, and will shape who you want to be. It is always the simple that produces the marvelous. Amelia Barr. Do something today that your future self will thank you for. Unknown. Vitality shows not only in the ability to persist, but in the ability to start over. F. Scott Fitzgerald. Love yourself first, and everything else falls into line. Lucille Ball. To live is the rarest thing in the world. Most people just exist. Oscar Wilde. While I was still married, the book Eat, Pray, Love came out by Elizabeth Gilbert. Now, you all know that I am a voracious reader. It's one of my favorite things to do. But what you don't know is that the library was a safe place for me as a kid, a sanctuary. We had a small community library around the corner from our house, and so my mom allowed me to go there on my own. I spent many, many hours in the library as a young girl, and escaping into books was a positive way for me to avoid my reality. It was also a way to learn so much about the world around me. Anyone else have a spot they spent a lot of time as a kid? A really safe spot? As I grew into adulthood, books were a way for me to learn about all the things I didn't know. And with an insatiable curiosity, books were a godsend. So when Eat, Pray, Love came out so many years ago, of course I read it. Elizabeth Gilbert was everywhere. And at the time, I probably saw her on Oprah. Frankly, I didn't like her. I was kind of pissed off, which obviously makes no sense. Although I was in a marriage that wasn't working, but I really wasn't quite aware yet of exactly what I was facing. My body was screaming at me, but I wasn't listening. And we had children. So there was no wrapping things up and hitting the road for me. That's why I didn't like Elizabeth Gilbert. I was envious. Envious of her ability to just completely change her life when she knew it wasn't working. And more importantly, that she had the courage to acknowledge that it needed to be done and then just got to it and went out and did it. Any other Gilmore Girls fans out there? Several years ago, I had a friend suggest I watch the show. I think she's an avid listener of the podcast, so here's your shout out. I recently watched Gilmore Girls, A Year in the Life on Netflix, and in episode 4, the part where Lorelai goes to the Pacific Crest Trail, like from the book and the movie Wilde by Cheryl Strayed, really got me thinking. Thanks so much for getting me interested in this, Molly. I was in a very, very different place when the book Wilde was released. It was almost exactly a year into my divorce and was reeling from the reality of what divorcing a narcissist was really going to look like. I have to give credit to Tina Swithin here from One Mom's Battle because she was really a lifeline for me in understanding what I was actually going through when no one around me really got it. She made me realize that I wasn't alone. And at a time when I really needed to know that. So I was really recently watching that Gilmore Girls episode, and I'm reflecting on my own journey of when these two books came out and realizing how different my life was over the span of those years. And it dawns on me there are a lot of people out there experiencing life the way I have or had who don't have the time, the money, or the resources to walk away from their lives and to experience the kind of massive, sweeping changes that Elizabeth and Cheryl experienced. And yet, we all deserve to have our own personal wild moments. What do you do when you are desperate to change something in your life, to get out of a situation? When you have finally woken up and are listening to your body, the messages that it has been screaming at you for weeks or months, or in my cases, and maybe yours, for years, the first thing you do is breathe and acknowledge. Rome wasn't built in a day, as they say. And even Cheryl and Elizabeth had weeks and months, respectively, to work through and plan their life altering changes. Give yourself so much space and grace. I know that sounds completely useless, right? And the Jill of 20 or 15 or maybe even 10 years ago would have looked at me like I was completely nuts. So just try to trust me on this one. The more compassion and empathy that you can give yourself to breathe and slow down and be kind to yourself, all of the things you would give to your own kids or your best friend, the faster and easier this process will go. If you struggle against it, if you think you can bully your way through, I'm telling you, flat out from experience, you will fall flat on your face, 100%. And the reason is one of the groundbreaking things both of these women found on their journeys was that it was okay, not just okay, but absolutely imperative for them to be authentically themselves. And the fact is, we can't do that without also understanding and accepting our humanity, that we will make mistakes. And hopefully that means we'll fail forward. And also that the people who love us will love us, warts and all. And if they don't, they weren't meant to. The next step is to come to terms with where you really are. This step can be hard, particularly if, like me, you've been living in denial for a long time. Reality can be painful. And yet, let me tell you, it's a much easier way to live in the long run. Knowing who you are, good, bad, and the ugly, gives us a freedom and a richness, a capacity that ultimately sets us free and allows us to live the lives that we want. In this process of finding out who you are, or of rediscovering yourself, or if you've been in a toxic relationship, start making decisions. Now, this is really key because if you haven't been doing that for a long time, it's going to be hard to start. And making your own decisions is a powerful step in getting your agency back. It'll feel a little foreign in the beginning, so start small. What are you going to make for dinner? What color shirt do you want to buy? This is practice. The more we practice anything, the better we get at it, and it will build your confidence. The one thing that both women did was get outside. I mean that literally and figuratively. Elizabeth got out of her life by traveling away from it, halfway across the world, frankly. Cheryl literally got outside by getting on the Pacific Crest Trail. Get outside, move, walk, run, be outside. The light, the air, the weather really makes you present. Even if it's only for 15 minutes on your lunch break, get outside. It will make a difference. I think one of the reasons I was so kind of pissed off at the gall of Elizabeth to just pack up and leave is that it was what she needed. And she chose herself. She put her own mask on first. And at that time of my life, I could not comprehend what that concept meant. I literally would have told you that in case of an emergency, I would absolutely put the mask on my kids and then put on my own. That I could do that. I could be that one person that could hold my breath long enough to save my kids before myself. In hindsight, that's totally, completely nuts. And it's a disservice to think that to myself and anyone else that I think I might be saving. You have to choose yourself. And I'm here to tell you there is nothing selfish about that. Another important key is to be present. Don't try to fix or change the past, and don't fixate on the future. Yes, absolutely. Make plans for when it's going to be better, for sure. But don't get lost in the past or the future, because you can't do anything about the past. And you have no idea what the future is really going to look like. Being present gives you your best shot at handling whatever it is that's happening. And it may seem counterintuitive, but it also gives you the best opportunity for making the future as close to what you want as possible. Finally, make sure you focus on this question. We talk about this all the time. What do you want? Spend as much time as you possibly can imagining what you want. Include imagining and dreaming about what your life looks like. What are the non-negotiables? Open up to the possibilities. Don't limit yourself. Take some time, take lots of time to imagine the most incredible life with everything you've ever wanted. It's not often that we have the opportunity to walk away from our lives for weeks or months and renew or redo all that we feel we want to change. And let's face it, sometimes we feel like we need a complete overhaul. Frankly, if you're in a crisis or facing a major life change, or more importantly, trying to recover from a significant situation or event or a trauma, you need weeks or months to do that. And for most of us, life just doesn't give us that opportunity. You can still work through the grief and heal. You can build the life you want. You can come up for air instead of drown. You've got this. And for those moments that seem impossible, I'm here to support you. Near the end of the Gilmore Girls episode that I was watching, Lorelai doesn't end up taking the trail. Instead, she just goes to get a cup of coffee, of course. And when the coffee shop is closed, she ends up at the base of the hill, standing there in a moment of serenity and reflection and solitude, making decisions that change her life. We can have those same experiences when we pay attention, get into our bodies, get outside, get present, and are willing to give ourselves the space and grace we give others. Also, when we put ourselves first and focus on what we want our lives to look like. I'm always here to help. Please reach out to me if you would like some additional support, would like me to come speak to your organization or school, or would like to be a guest on the show. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to today's episode on how to change our lives when we don't have the opportunities like in Eat, Pray, Love or Wilde. Remember, with intention and presence, we can save ourselves and live the lives we long for. I appreciate you sharing these episodes. This podcast is a powerful resource for anyone that is looking to make changes in their lives. Please help me grow by sharing, liking, and subscribing. There will be new episodes on the second and fourth Wednesday of every month. I promise that every episode I'm going to show up and help support you in your individual journey. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll see you soon.